This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good evening, everyone. Bruchim Habayim. Let us just recap what we learned last week, so that we'll be able to get back into this topic. We're going to begin part 2, but first let's review what we learned last week. So we learned that there are four malchios. There are four main kingdoms that have dominated and ruled over Bnei Yisrael, and we said they were alluded to in the beginning of last week's Parsha. Ela Masei Bnei Yisrael, Edom, Madai, Bavel, Yavan. First came the Babylonians. That was the first malchios. The first malchus was Bavel. The Babylonians destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash. The second malchus was Persia, Paras Umadai. The Persians conquered the Babylonians, or the Kasdim, the Chaldeans. So first came Bavel, then came Paras, then came Persia. Persia was conquered by Greece, and their greatest king, of course, Alexander the Great. And then finally, Greece was conquered by the Romans, and the Romans destroyed the Bayis Sheni, the second Beis HaMikdash. That's the Galus we're in today. Simply put, those are the four Galios: Bavel, Paras, Yavan, and Rome. That's a simple explanation. Rome is the fourth Malchus. And we had a question last week. What about Yishmael? What about the Arabs? Why are they not considered one of the Daled Malchios? Why are they not one of the four Malchios? And the Maral gave two answers. Answer number one was that the definition of a Malchus is a kingdom that comes and takes away the Malchus of Klal Yisrael. And therefore all of these four Malchios, Bavel took away our Malchus, Paras conquered Bavel, Yavan conquered Paras, and Rome conquered Yavan. But Yishmael has its own independent koach. Yishmael has its own independent source of power. Its source of power is the tefillah of Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu daven, Lu Yishmael yechei lefanecha. And Hashem said, yes, Ulu Yishmael shematicha. So the power of Yishmael is not that they took away the malchus, the majesty that belongs to the Jewish people. Yishmael has its own independent source of koach, and therefore does not classify as a malchus. However, the second answer the Maral said, and this was the primary answer that he accepted, this was what he considers the most authoritative answer, and that is, why is Yishmael not counted as one of the four Malchios? Because Yishmael is included in Paras, in Persia. Persia, which was the second empire, includes, in its umbrella category, it includes the Arabs, it includes Yishmael.
Yeah, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Rabbi, the Galus started with Sancherib, not with Nebuchadnezzar.
With who?
Sancherib. But that's referring to Babylon, because he was also from the area?
You mean they exiled the Aser Shvatim?
Yeah. That's actually where the Galus started. The Galus started actually with the two tribes.
But Sancherib, Ashur is not considered a Malchus. Why not?
But that's actually when the Galus started. Actually, halacha about, how you call it?
Bas Sancherib Bilbo Kol Umos.
No, but we learned about halachot atlut ba'aretz. Yovelim start when Reuven starts.
Right, that's because for Eretz Yisrael to have the status of Shemitah, you need Rov Yisrael Ba'aretz.
But even more,
okay, it's an interesting question why Assyria is not considered one of the Malchus. Perhaps because Bavel, I don't know if Bavel ever conquered Assyria. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay? What? It's not counted. It's not counted as one of the Malchus. Okay? So again, the second answer, Maral, is that the Yishmael is included in part of the Persian. Part of the Persian Empire is Yishmael. We had a question, why should Yishmael be included in part of the Persian Empire? Persian Empire already fell. They were conquered by the Greeks. So we said the following. We said something very interesting. If you remember, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah said that at the end of the days, God is going to hold up the Sefer Torah, and Hashem is going to say, anybody who contributed to the Torah should come and take your reward, and all the nations are going to come and clamor for reward, and first the Romans come. Remember, what did the Romans say? The Romans said, we made many marketplaces, we made many bathhouses, we printed a lot of money, and we did it all so that Bnei Yisrael should be able to learn Torah. So God said, Shotim, you're fools, you didn't do it for that, and they were rejected. Then the Gemara says the Persians came and claimed their reward, and the Persians said, look, we conquered a lot of cities, we built a lot of bridges, we made a lot of wars. And why did we do it? We did it so that Bnei Yisrael should be able to learn Torah. Right? Hashem said, no, that's not why you did it. Hashem rejected them. And the Gemara had a question. After saying all the nations went in before God and claimed reward, the Gemara asks, why were the primary nations, why were the first two nations to come and claim reward, the Romans and the Persians? And what did the Gemara answer? Because the Romans and the Persians are the most chashuv, they're the most important. And the Gemara asked, what makes them the most important? And the Gemara answered, because those two malchios will last until Mashiach comes. The Romans and the Persians. That's what the Gemara said. So we had a question, what do you mean they'll last until Mashiach comes? The Romans will last until Mashiach comes, but the Persians are long gone. How could the Gemara say the Persians will last until Mashiach comes? So we said, according to the Maral, it's very good. Why? Because since the Persians include the Arabs, and the Arabs, of course, we still suffer from, so therefore the Gemara is correct in saying that Rome and Paras, the Romans, the descendants of Esau, and the Persians will last until Mashiach comes. Why? Even though the Persian Empire is gone, the Arabs are still here. The Arab Empire we are still suffering from, and therefore these two malchios, says the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Daf Beis Amud Beis, these two malchios will last until Mashiach comes. And if you remember, we learned the Gemara in Yuma last week that there's a machlokus between Rabbi and Rav, who will defeat who before Mashiach comes. Rabbi says the Persians will defeat the Romans, and then Mashiach will come. And Rav says, no, the Romans will defeat the Persians, and then Mashiach will come. And we explain what that means is, we have a machlokes, before Mashiach comes, the Arabs and the Christians will wage war. One of them will win. Rebbe holds the Arabs will win. Rav holds the Christians will win. But either way, only one will be left, and at which point, Ben David will come, and Mashiach will come. That's what we learned last week.
What's going to happen to the winner?
To who?
What's going to happen to the winning side?
The winner also, he goes lost when Mashiach comes, will be defeated. According to the opinion, the Arabs will go attack the Christian empire, the Christian capital, at which point David HaMelech will come and destroy the last remaining nation. Mashiach will come and destroy the last remaining nation.
What about the Chinese?
Gog and Magog. Only one nation could be left standing before Mashiach comes. And the two nations that will be there, the two empires that we'll be dealing with, are Edom and Paras. Rome, Persia. And Persia, the Maral says, are the Arabs. Okay. We're going to come to that. So now we're up to part 2. What about, according to what we've learned so far, is Yishmael considered one of the Malchios? Well, it depends. Either he doesn't make the list because he has his own independent source, or he's included in the Persians. We have the opinion of the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra is one of the Rishonim, very often quoted by Ramban, one of the main commentaries on the Chumash. And the opinion of Ibn Ezra, we're up to number 10. And the opinion of Ibn Ezra is that Yishmael indeed is one of the Malchios. Which one is he? He's number 4. The Ibn Ezra feels that the Arabs, Yishmael, is such a powerful force, such a terrifying force, that it is impossible that it is not one of the 4 empires. Right? We learned last week that Daniel, in his vision, he saw 4 animals. Remember? He saw the lion that represented the Babylonians. He saw the bear, right? The Persians. He saw the leopard that represents the Greeks. And he saw the great monster unidentified. Right? He saw the unidentified monster. Who is that? Simply put, it's the Romans. However, the Ibn Ezra feels, Ibn Ezra disagrees. Ibn Ezra says, it is impossible that if Daniel saw a great monster, and we know the character of Yishmael, and Yishmael is powerful, and they're dangerous, and they're evil, and they're monstrous. You want to know who the monster was? The monster was Yishmael. the Arabs. Says the Ibn Ezra, so where does Rome fit in? Where does Edom fit in? Something very interesting. The Ibn Ezra says, if you look at the end of Parshas Nayach, and my notes got soaked on the way here, so hopefully they'll be dried by the end of this year. But if you look at the end of Parshas Nayach, it talks about the descendants of Yavan. If anyone has a Chumash, it's on page 44. Uvnei Yavan. Who are the sons of Yavan? Elisha, Sarshish, Kitim, Vidodanim. Yavan, father of Greece, had 4 children. Elisha, Sarshish, Kitim, and Dodanim. Who are the Kitim? If you look in Parshas Balak, Kitim, the Targum Onkelos says Kitim is Rome. Which means the son of Yavan was Rome. Okay, the Romans are, Rome, the father of Rome, is the son of the father of Greece. And therefore Ibn Ezra says, I don't need to make a separate empire out of Rome. Greece and Rome fall under one category. They're the same thing. The father was Yavan, the son was Greece, they're all the same. Who is the 4th Malchus? The 4th Malchus, according to Ibn Ezra, is Yishmael. The monster is Ishmael. The lion is Bavel, the bear are the Persians, the leopard is the Greeks, and the monster, according to Ibn Ezra, who the Ibn Ezra lived under the Arab reign, the Arab rulership, he felt Galus number 4 was not Rome, it was Ishmael.
If the Malchuyot is something that you're taking, and we know that, let's say, Babylon and for us, you can say identify them as the same, okay, the same people.
No, not. You mean?
And Persian almost the same. No, you know what? You're right. No. Babylon destroyed the temple.
And then the Persians came and defeated Belshazzar. Correct.
So they didn't take anything. Now.
No, but what they took was they took over. The Babylonians took our majesty, and the Persians went and usurped it from the Babylonians. They were in control, and we were under their dominion.
Okay, so that means
the Malchus, they continued the reign of the Babylonians.
Same logic you can say about Ishmael that took over the Rome, because the Rome and the Greek, because they're sitting now in Jerusalem, for example.
Okay, that Ibn Ezra doesn't say, and the Arabs never conquered the Romans.
Because the Muslim and Ibn Ezra didn't sit in Jerusalem.
No, they had their own empire. But Ibn Ezra wasn't in Yerushalayim.
No, but I'm saying they took over Jerusalem only in the 11th century. Right. Only in the 11th century.
Yeah, they didn't. They did not exile us at any point.
Yeah, also the Persians didn't exile us.
But they continued the exile of the Babylonians.
Same thing the Arabs.
What is your point? What is your point?
My point.
What about your point?
The Persians didn't destroy the temple, but then consider the second Malchut. The Rome destroyed the temple, okay, the Rome and the Greek, but the fourth one, it's actually like the second one.
No, the 4th one, the Romans destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. The Persians never. The Persians.
The Rome is like the Greek.
According to that, yeah. According to that. Okay, so that's the opinion of Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra says the 4th Malchus is Yishmael, the Arabs. The Ramban in 2 places, the Ramban in Parshas Balak, and the Ramban in Sefer HaGeula, the Ramban disagrees vehemently with the Ibn Ezra. And the Ramban says, if you look at number 14, we're not going to read the whole thing inside, Ramban says that the Ibn Ezra, Rabbi Avram, made a mistake over here. And the reason why he made a mistake is because he was afraid, he was so scared of the Arabs, that to him he considered the Arabs the 4th Malchus. However, we cannot consider the Arabs the 4th Malchus. In fact, the Ramban says the position of the Ibn Ezra is a position of chisaron das. It's missing understanding. Why? Because there's a reason why Daniel saw 4 Malchios. Why? What was the reason God showed Daniel the 4 Malchios? The first Malchus God showed Daniel, that was the Malchus that destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. They were taken over by the Persians. They were taken over by the Greeks. The Persians allowed for the reconstruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. The Greeks conquered the Persians, and then the Romans destroyed the second Beis HaMikdash, throwing us into the Galus that we're in today. And the reason why God is showing Daniel these Malchios is because these are the 4 Malchios that will reign until God restores Malchus to Bnei Yisrael when Mashiach comes. The purpose of Daniel's function was, he was the individual who knew when Mashiach would come. Right? The Sefer Daniel ends, V'ata lech leketz hayamin, you go till the end of days. Daniel, there are only 2 people in history who knew when the Ketz was going to be. Daniel and Yaakov Avinu. But Daniel, most clear. Daniel was the Navi who said exactly when the Ketz was. So he only needed to know about the Malchus, the Malchios that would destroy the Beis HaMikdash and continue on until Mashiach comes. And Yishmael has nothing to do with that. Yishmael never sent us into Galus. It's the Romans that sent us into Galus. That's the Galus we're in today. And at no point did the Arabs exile us. So therefore we cannot consider the Arabs one of the exiles. We have no tradition, says Ramban, that they specifically will last until Mashiach comes. Maybe they'll fall before Mashiach comes. And therefore the Ramban says the Arabs Yishmael cannot be considered one of the Malchios. Okay? Says Ramban something very interesting. That even during the reign of these 4 Malchios, there certainly were other dominions. For example, Ramban says, during the times of the Persians and the Greeks, there were many Malchios. India was settled then. They were a great empire. The Ramban says, sort of in the middle of the piece, the Romana Empire. Ha-Tartar. You know what the Tartar is?
No. It was a nation?
Yeah, the Mongolian Empire. Genghis Khan. By the way, Genghis Khan was a contemporary of Ramban. What? They didn't write shuvas to each other, but they were contemporaries. Ramban was in the time of Genghis Khan. So, what about these empires? Why are they not counted? Because we're not interested in them. Daniel didn't need to know about them. Why didn't Daniel need to know about them? Daniel only needs to know about those empires that destroy the Beis HaMikdash, continue on that state of being until Mashiach comes. The Arabs have no role in that. They oppress us, they torture us, they harass us, but they don't have a role in this sequence of history of destroying the temple and continuing that state of being ad yemos HaMashiach.
So they'll eventually just fizzle out.
What?
They'll fizzle out.
Maybe they'll fizzle out, maybe they won't. But they're not, the coming of Mashiach, according to Ramban at least, is not dependent on the fall of Yishmael. It's not dependent on the fall of Yishmael. Right. Let's see, the Ramban says it very concisely in number 15 in the Sefer HaGeula. Take a look at number 15. The Hachacham Rabbi Avram, the great sage Rabbi Avram, Omer, he says, Kihi Malchus Yishmael, that the 4th Malchus is the Malchus of Yishmael. Shegam hi ledaitai moishachas abiyas hagoya. Because according to Rabbi Avram, the Arabs will continue until Mashiach comes. V'hechnisai b'machlekas hazois, and he allowed us to entertain the idea that in order to stick in the Arabs as exile number 4, Malchus number 4, we have to put 2 together, Greece and Rome. Masha Amar, ki hayavanim v'haromim am echad yichashu. You have to say that Greece and Rome is all one. Kedivrei hamatargim, like the Targum Unkla says, shehim kitim, that kitim are the Romans, v'hu echad mibnei Yavan. And also we know Alexander also was the descendant of, the antecedent of Rome. Gam ki Alexandrus melech Roma haya, he can be considered a Roman emperor. And also Ibn Ezra was bothered v'oid. He was also further bothered. Shehuksha b'daitai. He was wondering, Lama lo yachshav Malchus Yishmael. Why don't we count Malchus Yishmael? She Malchus Gedolah v'atzuma min haromim, which is much stronger than the Romans, because to Ibn Ezra, in the area of Ibn Ezra, the Arabs were stronger. So Ibn Ezra's bothered. Why are the Arabs not counted? Says Ramban, let me explain to you what the opinion of our sages is about this. Ibn Ezra may have a logical approach, but this is not our tradition. Our tradition is not that the Arabs are the fourth Galus. Why? Hine ha'arba malchios shechashav hakasav. The four malchios that the pasuk enumerates, lo mana behen rak hagoyvaros zu al zu. We only count one that prevailed on the preceding one. Babylon, they were conquered by Persia, they were conquered by Greece, they were conquered by Rome. The definition of Malchus is when B takes what A had, C takes what B had. The Arabs never took anything that someone else had. They were either there or they weren't there. Either they had weapons, they didn't have weapons. Either they wanted to kill, they didn't want to kill. They never took over something that someone else had. And therefore they don't classify as a Malchus, which might be why Ashur is also not a Malchus. They rose to power, nobody took what they had, maybe they rose and they faded.
But the Arabs took what the Christian had.
They didn't take. They waged war from it. It's not like the Arabs came and took what the Christians had, their empires and their strongholds. Now Yishmael took it over. There's an Arab empire, there's a Christian empire. They fight against each other, but no one would say that one was subsumed by the other.
Until it was a Christian, that Islam took it.
They conquered that area. But
They conquered Jerusalem, they conquered
the Christian empire still existed. And the Arab empire still existed. Even when one conquered the other, one gained ascendancy, the other one still existed, as opposed to when Persia came, Babylon disappeared. When Greece came, perhaps Persia disappeared. And when Rome came, Greece disappeared. But with the Christians and the Arabs, one may conquer the other cities, but when Christians conquer the Arab lands, or Arabs conquer Christian lands, the other empires still...
Because it's still standing, so they didn't take it.
Right. The definition of Malchus is Bavel took us. We were. It's like we don't have Malchus anymore. We're just regular people. We don't have Malchus anymore. We don't exist, so to speak, as a with national pride. That's the way he defines it. Okay. Now, what I would like to get involved in a little bit, we'll try to do this quickly, is a very interesting pasuk in Parshas Nitzavim. Okay? So now we've determined, basically, the first empire is Babylon, 2 Persia, 3 Greece, and 4, we have Machlokas. Ibn Ezra, Yishmael. Ramban, Rome, Edom. Okay? Let's take a look in the pasuk in Parshas Nitzavim, number 16. V'nosan Hashem alekecha, after all the curses that the Torah speaks about that are in store for those who violate the will of Hashem, pasuk says, "V'nosan Hashem alekecha," God will place as kol ha'olos ha'ela all of these curses. Who will God place it on? Alo yevecha, on those who hate you, v'yasainecha, and those who detest you, asher dafucha, who chase you. Okay, so God says that all the curses that are destined for the Jewish people, God will place on your enemies. Who are the oyevim? Who are the sonim? Who are these people? No, not your mother-in-law. Who's your oyevecha? Who's your sainecha? So look at number 17. V'sham hivtiach, the Ramban says, here we have a promise, sheyachris v'yigala hamagala moisanu, that God will cut off those who have exiled us. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, v'nosan Hashem lekecha es kol ha'olos ha'ela ala yevecha v'yasainecha. God will place all of these curses on your oyevim and on your sainim. Who are the oyevim and who are the sainim? Says Ramban, v'hinei oyevecha v'sainecha, remez l'shtei ha'umais, this is a remez to the two nations, asher yirdefu tamid acharenu, that constantly pursue us. This is a remez to the two nations that constantly chase us and harass us. Who are they? What would you say? Ishmael and Edom. Who is Ishmael and who is Edom? Right? We have two words, oyevecha, sainecha. Who is our oyev? Who is our saine? You know, in the English language, we have synonyms. We can have two words that mean the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
But in the Hebrew language, there are no such thing as synonyms, right? We have no such things as there are no synonyms. Even two words that appear the same. Chazak ve'ematz, oyev, sone, she'ela, bakasha, each one of these terms has a nuance of difference. So what is the difference between an oyev and a saineh? Rabbeinu Bechaye in number 19 defines, oyevecha is Yishmael, Soinecha Esav. Your oyev is the Arabs, your soine is Esav.
I thought it was just not to disagree. I think it was the opposite, because we said like, Hatzeleni Yad Achim Yad Esav. Because sometimes he's your friend, right?
Okay, so we have to see what is worse. Which is a worse enemy, an oyev or a soine? Okay. Now, how does Rabbeinu Bechaye know exactly? Oyevecha is Yishmael, soinecha is Esav. Right, he said, there's a well-known chazal, right, it says that when Yaakov and Esav met after Yaakov had been learning in yeshiva 14 years, and then in the house of Lavan 22 years. So what happened? Yaakov and Esav meet, the pasuk says, Vayishakehu, that Esav kissed Yaakov, and there are dots on top of the word Vayishakehu. Whenever you have dots in the Tanakh, dots teach you it's the opposite of what you would have thought. So one way of looking at it is, look, really it says he kissed him. The dots tell you he didn't really want to kiss him, he really wanted to bite his neck off. That's one explanation of the dots. Dots mean the opposite. It's a special oral law that when you have dots in the Torah, it teaches it's the opposite. By the way, there is one word in Tanakh that has dots on top and on the bottom. I'm not going to tell you what it is, we'll come to it in a few weeks. There's one word in Tanakh that has dots on top and on the bottom. Okay, another explanation of the dots, Rashi says, is really Esav can't stand Yaakov. Esav hates Yaakov, Esav hates Yaakov's guts. But if the Torah says he kissed him, so we naturally would have thought he didn't really want to kiss him. He kissed him like, you have to kiss your great aunt. So the Torah, worse than that. So the Torah says, no, but that's, he really kissed him, b'leiv shalem. The opposite of what you would have thought. You would have thought he didn't really mean to kiss him. The dots tell you he kissed him completely. B'leiv shalom, with a full heart. Now Rashi quotes the well-known statement of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says, Amar Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, halacha biyadua. I left out the word biyadua. It is a well-known, unalienable law of nature. This is a phenomenon of history, that Esav soine Yaakov. Esav is a soine of Yaakov. Very interesting. Very interesting term. That halacha biyadua. Halacha biyadua means there's no explanation for it. It's just, right? You drop something, it falls. Gravity, right? That's just the law of nature. That's the way it is. Is there a logic to it? You could explain it, but there's no logic to it, right? There's no logic to it. So the fact that Esav hates Yaakov, there's no explanation. People try to think it's because we're rich, not because we're rich, because they hate us when we're poor. No, it's because we're poor. There's no explanation. They hate us when we're successful. They hate us when we're not successful. They hate us when we're like them. They hate us when we're not like them. They just hate us. There's no explanation for it. Very interesting. I once heard, why is Reb Shimon Bar Yochai the one who says halacha biyadua she'esav soine Yaakov? Of all the Tanoim, why is it Reb Shimon Bar Yochai who said this? Because there's one of the well-known positions of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is Reb Shimon is doiresh taima dekra. There's a big machlokes Tanoim. When the Torah gives a mitzvah, are you allowed to try to explain the reason for the mitzvah, and therefore define when the mitzvah applies, or do we say no, the mitzvah is a mitzvah, you can't give reasons for it? And Reb Shimon Bar Yochai's position is he's doiresh taima dekra. He always offers a reason for a mitzvah, and nevertheless, even though Reb Shimon Bar Yochai he's able to explain the reason for things, this is one thing he says beats me. No explanation. There's no explanation why Esav hates Yaakov. But in any event, we see this term "sone" used for Esav. He's sone. He hates us. Or we find in the Haftorah of Parshas Toldos that the Rebbe Shalom says, "V'yes Esav sanesi." I hate Esav. Yeah.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
But the Torah says the reason Esau hates Yaakov because he has steal two things from him. About stealing the firstborn, and then the stealing the bracha the father is supposed to give it to him, and he gave it to the Yaakov Avinu. So that's why he is starting to hate Yaakov Avinu.
That got Esav angry. That's why he wanted to kill Yaakov. But he didn't need any excuse to hate us. The hatred is in his blood.
But the Torah says another part, the reason usually the goy hating us, because Hashem put the curse on Jewish nation. They said, anytime you're leaving me, they're going to start hating me. And anytime you're getting close to me, they're going to start respecting me. That's why in another part,
they respect us, but
when we're going to get
correct.
close to Hashem,
they harm us. When Jews try to assimilate and mix in, the guy makes sure it doesn't happen. And when we do Torah and mitzvos, they give us freedom, they honor us, but they still hate us.
Because
it's halacha biyodua. It's a law of nature. So now Rabbeinu Bachai says something very interesting. Who is a Soinei and who is an Oyev? The Soinei is Esav, the Oyev is Yishmael. Okay? What is the difference between a Soinei and an Oyev? A Soinei is someone who hates you. But if he gets you in the corner and he's going to kill you, he'll have some rachmanas on you. Sonei. It's impossible. An Oyev is worse than a Sonei. Why? The word Oyev comes from the word Avoy. When you see the guy, you scream, Oy va'avoy, woe to me. There is no rachmanos, there is no mercy, says Rabbeinu Bachai. Okay, look at Rabbeinu Bachai says.
You can say that. What happened with Bnei Esav is not neglect. What Ishmael did to the Yehudim, it's neglected compared to what Bnei Esav did to us.
You mean it's negligible?
Yeah, now you cannot even consider them as an enemy if you compare what the Christian did to us. If you consider the Greeks and the Rome as one family, it's nothing compared to what the Arabs did to us.
Okay, I hear. We're not going to answer that until next part 3. Okay? But at least what the words of Rabbeinu Bachai are that the Oyevim are Yishmael and the Soinim are Bnei Esav. Okay? Now the Rabbeinu Bachai agrees and he concedes that our exile today are in the hands of the Edomim. However, says Rabbeinu Bachai, if you look about midway through, he says in number 19, Umipnei shebnei Yishmael kashin li Yisrael yoiser mi bnei Esav. The Arabs are more harsh to the Jewish people than the Christians. That's why they are called Oyevim. And then Rabbeinu Bachai quotes a statement of Chazal that we don't have this Chazal available anymore. And then there's a statement, Tachas Edom v'loy Tachas Yishmael. We're better off being under the descendants of Esav than being under the descendants of the Arabs. Now, does history bear this out? It's hard to make the case.
It's opposite.
I'm just commenting today.
It's hard to make the case.
When was Rabbeinu Bachai?
Rabbeinu Bachai was one of the students, I believe, of the Rashba.
14th century, 15th century?
Well, earlier, 13.
In history, the Muslim, they never killed the Jewish people.
No,
No.
Yeah.
No. Not like what they did.
No.
Not compared to the Catholics.
They're very bad. They're very bad.
Okay.
I'm gonna read to you what the Rambam writes about the Arabs. The Rambam says unequivocally, what the Arabs have done makes what the Christians have done. They're kind to us. So I'll read to you what the Rambam says. Okay, but again, opinion of Rabbeinu Bachai is that the Arabs are a lot worse. They are oyevim. They have no rachmanos. There is utter hatred. It could be what he means is the hatred that the Yishmael has to Bnei Yisrael is deeper, is more innate than the hatred of the Bnei Esav.
Yeah, but if you define somebody as your enemy, you prepare yourself because you know he's your enemy.
Okay.
When you come into the United States and you see all the evangelists, you say they're your friend, you're sitting very quietly until something gonna happen like in German.
Okay. Rabbi said, then Rabbeinu Bachai ends off by saying something very interesting. He says, the Navi Yeshaya tells us that at the end of days, both of these nations are going to be wiped off the face of the map. And he quotes the pasuk. He quotes a pasuk that says in Sefer Yeshaya, Achar achas batavech. One in the middle. So Rabbeinu Bachai says either this pasuk is a remez to the cross, 1 and 1, right? You have 1 and then 1 in the middle. So remez, yeah. Rabbeinu Bachai learns the shasi va'arev, the warp and the weft, the cross. Or achar achas batavech refers to leaving the Jewish people in the middle. It refers to their day of rest. The Christians celebrate Friday, the Muslims celebrate Sunday, and we are in the middle. The Christians celebrate Sunday, and the Arabs celebrate Friday, leaving us smack in the middle. And the end of the pasuk is, Yachtov Yasufanu Hashem. Together, these two nations will dissipate. They'll disappear. Okay. The Ramban learns a little bit differently. Ramban understands that it's just the opposite. The Oyevim are the Christians. The Sainim are the Arabs. And there's a question what the exact girsa in Ramban is. But there is a dispute. Certainly when the pasuk says that at the end of days God will put the curses al Oyevecha v'al Sainecha, these refer to these two nations, Esav and Yishmael. Who is worse? Rabbeinu B'chai clearly says it's Yishmael. It's Yishmael. Let's read a little bit what Rambam says about Yishmael. The Rambam writes in the Igaras HaTeiman, all the way at the end of Igaras HaTeiman, something very interesting. Rambam writes, let's take a look. Number 23. We'll read it inside. He says, V'atem achenu, and you, my brothers, Yadua lachem, it is known, Sha'akadosh Baruch Hu hipilanu b'ma'amoros avoseinu. God has cast us in the flow of our sin, b'tach'u mazu, into this nation, shehi umas Yishmael, which is a nation of Yishmael. Shera'asam chazka aleinu. Their evil is very strong on us. And every day they look for new plans to despise us and to harm us. Like God decreed. God decreed, V'ayavenu plilim. Our enemies will be our rulers. Now look what the Rambam says. Okay, this is Rambam. V'shaloi amda al Yisrael uma yoser ayeves mimena. There is no nation that is a greater enemy. V'loi uma sheherea b'tachlis hara. No nation has tried to harm us in the epitome of evil. To cause us to dwindle, and to diminish us, and to despise us. There is no nation in history that has harmed us, that despises us, that hates us like Ishmael. The Rambam writes it.
It's very, very contradicted. Somebody that runs away from the Christian and finds a shelter between Ishmael, writes something like that.
Look what he writes. Now look what else he writes. Unless what he means.
Depends what time we live. Like now, the Christians are our friends. 60 years ago, the Christians.
He wrote it maybe in the 10th, 11th century when he ran away from Spain. It doesn't make sense. Unless Egypt was a Christian country.
Yeah. One of the things over, say, the past 1,000 years, 1,100 years, is that whenever other people end up fighting, the Jews get blamed, no matter what. We like the scapegoat on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, that's true.
So even if the two of them fight and they disappear, maybe somebody else is going to pop up, and we're still going to get blamed.
Okay, certainly our tradition is at the end of days it will be those two nations. One will defeat the other, and then the last remaining one will also disappear. But very interesting, the Rambam writes, look what he writes about Ishmael, that there's no nation. And look what else he writes. Now the Rambam has very complimentary terms to the founder of Islam. Look what he writes. Skip 2 lines. He says, he quotes a pasuk in Tehillim. The Rambam says, even David HaMelech, when David HaMelech looked into the future, and he saw the future tragedies that are going to happen to the Jewish people, of all the nations that would harm us, David HaMelech bemoaned what will happen through Yishmael. Says David, Ayali, woe to me, Ki garti meshech, my sojourning has continued, Shachanti imahale Kedar, and I've dwelled in the residence of Kedar. Now what's Kedar? Kedar is the capital of the of Yishmael. Who came from Kedar? Muhammad. Muhammad came from Kedar. And now look what the Rambam calls Muhammad. Very nice name. Re'u, eich zachar, Kedar, mishar b'nei Yishmael. Look how David HaMelech specified and honed in on Kedar from all the descendants of Ishmael, from all the areas of Ishmael. Lefisha HaMeshuga, hu mibnei Kedar. Because that nice guy, the Meshuga, He comes from Kedar. There, the Meshuggah is reference to the father of Islam, which clinically he was a Meshuggah. As everybody knows, he hallucinated, and he was certainly medically a Meshuggah. Okay. Now he continues. The Rambam says that what we have to suffer under the Arabs, it's almost impossible to bear. Look, 6 lines from the bottom. Va'anachnu ba'odenu, and us in our existence. Sovlim shibudam. We need to bear their bondage. V'kizveim, and their lies. V'shikrusam, and their falsehoods. Lamala michalteinu, all of their accusations against us that are false, that are sheker v'chazov, we need to bear them. She'ein bichalas adam kach lizvo. It's almost impossible to tolerate. And says the Rambam, our rabbis have instructed us. How do we react to these accusations of Yishmael?
Careful with this, please.
How do we react to the accusations of Ishmael? The Rabbanim tell us, the Rambam says, we need to bear their accusations and remain silent. We don't respond. And where do we learn this from? The end of Parshas Vayera, it talks about the children of Yishmael. Yishmael had 3 sons by the name of Mishma, Duma, Masa. Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says this teaches you Mishma, you have to listen. Duma, you remain silent. Masa, and you bear it. That's how we react to the Arabs. There's nothing you could say. They make up lies, they make up falsehood, they make accusations, and what should the reaction be? Mishma, Duma, Umasa. You listen, you keep your mouth closed, and you tolerate it. Because you're just asking for more trouble. To even bother responding doesn't help.
All things doesn't change, no?
See that? Mishma, Duma, Umasa. These are the 3 of the children of Ishmael. Okay. We're going to give me 5 minutes, and let's see if we could uncover a little bit, at least according to Rabbeinu B'chai. Who hates us the most? The Arabs. Nobody hates the Jewish people like Ishmael. Huh?
South.
No, according to...
Oyev is Ishmael.
Right. According to Rabbeinu B'chai, Oyev is worse than Soneh.
So Soneh is South.
Yeah, but who hates us more? Who's the bigger enemy? According to Rabbeinu B'chai?
Ishmael.
Ishmael, right? Ishmael. Why? What is the source of this hatred? Okay. Rav Hutner, we learned last week, Hutner, one of the big Rosh Yeshivas of this century, he was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Chaim Berlin. And in 1970, his plane was hijacked by Arabs. And after that, he began to delve into and expound and explain the whole concept of the difference between the Arabs and the descendants of Esav. And Rav Hutner says like this: there is a fundamental difference between Esav and Yishmael. What does it say about Esav in the Torah? Esav still has Yerusha. Like the pasuk says, Lo Esav nasati es har seir lo reshes oso. Yerusha li Esav nasati es har seir. Esav was not cast away from the Avos. He maintains a certain connection to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He had a Yerusha. He has har seir. What about Yishmael? What kind of Yerusha did Yishmael have? Nothing. Sarah says, Ki goresh ha'ama hazois v'espina. Chase him out, chase her out and her son. Ki lo yirash ben ha'ama hazois and b'niyam Yitzchak. He will not inherit with Yitzchak. In other words, what did we do to Yishmael? We threw him out of the house. No Yerusha, no connection to the Avos. That's a fundamental difference between Esav and Yishmael. Esav is still part of the family. We told him, you go overseas, we'll send you a check. Right? When Papa passes away, you're going to get part of the estate. You ever hear about the Romans saying, give us Eretz Yisrael, it belongs to us? No, they don't bother with Israel. They don't bother undermining the Christian world. They don't bother undermining our claim. They're interested, but they don't bother undermining our claim to the land. Why? They were given Yerusha. They have their share. We have our share. The Shalom al Yisrael.
Big time in the,
what?
They lost big time to Israel.
There was the Crusades. They wanted to free Jerusalem from the Jewish control, but you don't have that constant It's not part of the theology to free Jerusalem from Jewish hands. They were not utterly rejected, and they don't come to undermine our claim to the land. We have our claim, they have their claim. However, Yishmael was utterly rejected. He was thrown out of the house. We don't send him a check. He has nothing of the father's estate. He has no connection to the Avos. So the Yishmael's jealousy is seething, is burning inside of him. It's the burning jealousy of a child who was thrown out of the house with nothing. And that we find in the terminology used, in the different terminology used by the rulers of Esav and the rulers of Yishmael. By the rulers of Esav, the pasuk says, Eila alufei Esav, Eila alufei Edom. These are the rulers of Edom. Limoish vaisam, according to their places of living, bi'aretz achuzasam, in the land of their inheritance. They have certain ancestral land. They have certain land that belongs to their families, that gets passed down from generation to generation. It belongs to them. They have their established dwelling places. So they're not interested. They don't have the same deep hatred to us. But the Arabs, what does it say about Yishmael? It says, Eila shemoisam bechatzreim uvetiroisam. This is the name of the Yishmaeli rulers in their open villages, in their open cities. The Arabs don't have any specific place, ancestral land, established places. They're nomads. They wander from one place to the next. They don't have familial land. They don't have achuzah. It never says the word achuzah by Yishmael. It never says the word Yerusha by Yishmael. Yishmael just has. They conquer this, and they're there until somebody kicks them out or until they conquer more land. They don't have anything that was given to them through a connection to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Esav maintains that connection, and therefore the hatred, Esav hates us. But their hatred, they don't have that burning hatred to the Jewish people that the Arabs have. And Rav Hutner took it a step further. Hutner says something amazing. One of the fundamental differences between Christianity and Islam is that the Christians accept Torah Shebechsav, the written law. They have the Old Testament. They believe in it. It's divine, but they believe God changed his mind. There's a New Testament, the abrogation of the law, and so forth. They accept Torah Shebechsav. They do not accept the oral law. The Arabs, they don't accept anything. They don't have our written law. They don't have Torah Shebechsav. They have their own Quran, basically where they completely twisted and turned and injected as many errors, historical inaccuracies as possible. Right? For example, when Paro didn't know what to do with the Jews, he consulted with Haman. Right? That's what it says in the Quran, and among many other lies. They never accept the written law. Why not? They don't have. Yishmael. Right? And Yishmael was on the Akedah, the whole ganze Bilamais, right? What's the difference? Why do the Arabs not accept the written law and the Christians accept the written law? Very simply. Because look at the written law. The written law, Esav is a Yoresh. Esav inherits. Esav is still part of the family. Esav still has connection to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But the Arabs can't accept the written law, because the written law says, Garesh es ben ha'amazos. Yishmael is rejected, utterly and completely rejected. So therefore the Arabs cannot even accept the Torah Shebechsav. The Christians, the descendants of Esav, they don't have a problem with the written law. It says, Ki b'Yitzchak yikar l'chazara. The seed, the descendants of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov will go through Yitzchak. But the Gemara says, Ki b'Yitzchak yikar l'chazara. B'Yitzchak v'loi kol Yitzchak. It won't go through entirely through Yitzchak. Only part of Yitzchak. Yaakov, that's Torah Sheba'al Peh. They don't accept the Torah Sheba'al Peh. But there's nothing problematic for the Christians in the written law. And therefore the written law they accept. It's only the drasha of the Gemara. Ki b'Yitzchak yikar l'chazara. They can't accept that. They can't accept the drasha. But the written law, the Christians accept. The Arabs are the one who not only cannot accept the Torah Sheba'al Peh, they cannot accept the Torah Shebechsav, because the Torah Shebechsav rejects them. That's another fundamental difference between the Arabs and Esav. Okay, we'll have to continue this in part 3, maybe even part 4.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.